Who's that?
I don't see how you get around that. It's like classroom.
Here we go. Good evening. Before we begin the meeting, based on board policy, I must announce that we do have 5 speakers this evening. Aurora Rutledge, Mick Leopold, Shauna Hadrava, Angela Leiter. Sorry, I went out of order. It was not on purpose. Josh Sternos. Each person speaking will have 3 minutes to a non-agenda item and 5 minutes to an agenda item. Start the meeting. Please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Next item, moment of silence. Mr. Denton.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in other silent activity.
It's
Thank you.
Next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance, led by the Board Clerk, Ms. Brandy Roulette.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, before we get into any voting on the agenda items, I'm going to ask that we move item 81 up in the agenda, either to after item 9 or after item 10. So I would like to ask discussion on that, please. Anybody have a preference
I don't have
after the public comments? Are you guys fine with that?
That would be good.
Okay. Okay, we'll move that to item 81 will actually be item 11.
Okay.
Okay. Next item will be the approval of the board meeting minutes for August 9th. Do we have any discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes, or abstain, I'm sorry.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen?
Yes.
You'll go
Do we have voting buttons? Did you get one?
I don't have one yet.
Get it cut now?
No, ma'am.
Yes.
Yep.
There it is.
I didn't get one.
Steve's one and a half.
Might click sync just to see if it-
She's locked in.
Does not want to cooperate.
Okay, we'll just
take a verbal.
do it verbal or in old school. Okay, next item, number 5. Ms. Pence.
Good evening, Dr. Vincent, President Allen, members of the board. My name is Dr. Kelly Pence, and I am here tonight to recognize 2 of my friends and colleagues, Mr. James Morrison and Mr. Darren Davis. Both of these gentlemen were recently inducted into the Oklahoma Bandmasters Association Hall of Fame. While I could list their many accomplishments, they're here tonight because of what they do for kids. So who better to speak to that than the students themselves?
Hello everyone, my name is Caden Cox and I am a junior and I am a drum major for the Pride of Broken Arrow. I have known Mr. Morrison since the summer before I started beginning band at Childers Middle School. Ever since that band camp in which he taught me how to play clarinet, everyone in that class had latched onto his sarcastic and fun personality. 3 years later, I arrived at the Freshman Academy and I had the honor to be in Mr. Morrison's wind ensemble class, as did many other students. It was truly amazing to be able to walk in the door every day and know that when you left, you would have learned many new musical concepts and jokes such as be smarter than the carpet. In his class, he showed us all a new perspective of music, which included the idea that every instrument was made to mimic a voice. With all this being said, thank you, Mr. Morrison, for everything you have taught us musicians of Broken Arrow Public Schools, and congratulations on all of your recent achievements that will inspire future students and directors throughout the community.
My name is Allison Purrier, and I am a senior drum major for the Pride of Broken Arrow. I've had the privilege of knowing Mr. Morrison for the past 4 years, and I cannot imagine what it would have been like without him. He has always put one of my greatest mentors and has played a big role in my musical career. I never thought a teacher could have such an influence on my life. Anyone who knows him only has the best things to say about him, and he always knows how to put a smile on my face, even when there's not one on his, because he's not very big on smiling. I've gone from freshman year wind ensemble and him telling me to play louder to my senior year with him telling me to be quiet. My freshman year, he encouraged me to learn a second instrument, and I've been playing not only flute, but piccolo for 4 years now. I cannot imagine my high school experience being any other way. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, for all you've done and all you have inspired me to do. You definitely deserve this honor.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Ordez. I am a senior drum major in the Pride of Broken Arrow, and I have the honor of being a student of Mr. Davis. Music has the ability to transform lives. Mr. Davis has not only demonstrated this, but has gone above and beyond in transforming the lives of his students by inspiring them to always show up as the best version of themselves. For me personally, I've had the privilege of being in his marching band and wind ensemble class. Every morning, he comes in with a warm smile, ready to engage with us and help us grow, not only as musicians, but as people. He is patient with our occasional wrong notes and eager to give us more information to improve. The memories I've made under the direction of Mr. Davis are ones that I will carry with me for the rest of my life, and I will be forever grateful to call myself one of his students.
My name is Chase Johnson, and I am a junior drum major for the Pride of Broken Arrow. Mr. Davis, a man who loves his Diet Cokes almost as much as his students. Having Mr. Davis be my band director for both marching band and concert band has been an honor. He inspires us to be better musicians, better people, and better leaders, both inside the band room and outside. He's taught us to trust the process and to be first class everywhere we go. He's an active part of the high school community, making sure to schedule rehearsals around school events as best he can, while also having us participate in things like pep rallies, helping to boost our school's spirit. When it comes to him as a band director, you can really tell that he cares about what he does and the music that he conducts. He even engages with his students regularly by joining in a fantasy football league. He's serious and hardworking, and yet he's also fun and laid back, delicately balancing the two to make an enjoyable band class, which is quite refreshing when it's the first class of your day. He has a real passion, not just for the music itself, but also for teaching it. Mr. Davis is an incredible man who has led Broken Arrow bands to great places and will continue to do so from his place among the greats, while we congratulate him as he is inducted into the Oklahoma Bandmasters Hall of Fame.
Okay, I for one want to hear from both of you gentlemen. You know, I think Miss Roulette and I both can speak to. We've both been band parents, and I know my oldest was in your class, Mr. Morrison, and everything you're saying is exactly what he said. The relationships you have with kids, bar none, amazing, and you bring things out of kids that you would not. I get irritated when people talk about teenagers because teenagers are capable of doing anything if they put their mind to it. And finally, you bring a sense of confidence that breeds competence and change kids' lives every single day. And you turn them into these incredibly respectful, responsible adults. I thank you as a mom for what you did for our family and for my child. So
Thank you so much.
And I would love to echo that, because I can't say it that way because I'll start crying.
I was trying not to.
I
was like, I'm
know.
sure
So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. Davis, first I want to congratulate both you and Mr. Morrison. As a young coach here in Broken Arrow, I was always a little jealous maybe of the band gets this, the band gets that. But as I watched what you expected of your program and the way you conducted your program, I was like, why don't I learn? And I tell you what, by watching what you did with your program out there at 7 in the morning, having tuba players run laps around the parking lot, and just the commitment you made and the commitment of your kids, it made me a better coach. And I want to say thank you for that, and thank you for everything you've done for Broken Arrow. Class act, class program. A lot of coaches, teachers, and people in this community can learn a lot from what you do with the Broken Arrow Pride. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd also like to, I've just been a recipient of being able to get entertained by watching all the things that you guys bring to the district and being able to represent us. And what's amazing is, Broken Arrow has such a legacy in it, and it's not just the individual, but you guys have ingrained a lifestyle of world changing in their lives. You've made such an impact, and I think about all the kids that you've done that to, and that's remarkable. Over the years, and being able to be inducted to the Hall of Fame is such an incredible reward. But honestly, just hearing the stories of family after family after family and the kids, the things that you've done to people's lives is remarkable from both of you. And so I just, deep down in my heart, I want to give you a heartfelt gratitude and thanks for everything that you do. Words alone cannot express what you've done and accomplished. And especially what's cool is hearing these kids up here talk about it. And that's amazing. There's nothing else better than that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, they say that if you have a job you love, you never work a day in your life. And that's how I know Mr. Morrison and the staff and I there's days that we don't love, but most of the days it's really great to be a band director at Broken Arrow and to have a community that values the arts and values the excellence of kids, regardless of what the activity is, or whether it's music or athletics or any other activity. It says a lot about our community that we can have a balance of academics and activities. And to be the band director and one of many at this school district, it means so much that we get this privilege at this school. So thank you so much for supporting us along the way. Thank you.
Do you guys have a big plaque or something at least that you can get your picture with? Congratulations.
That's incredible. Nice job.
Mr. Morrison.
Mr. Morrison said we got to be in the middle.
Next item, Coach Dunn.
Yes, sir. President Allen, Dr. Vince, and members of the board, thank you for having a couple of recognitions tonight. I want to echo that, too, to Mr. Morrison and Mr. Davis. They are unbelievable at their job. I would say that they have found their sweet spot of life where their purpose meets their passion, and it's an example every day. So congrats, Darren and Mr. Morrison, on that. Tonight, it's my honor to get to recognize our Assistant Athletic Director, Miss Amanda Snyder. The Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, the NIAAA, is our governing body as interscholastic athletics in the country. And Amanda, when she came to Broken Arrow in December of 2019, she came from the University of Tulsa. She was there for 12 years. And intercollegiate athletics and interscholastic athletics are vastly different. I always try to tell people some of the differences. The University of Oklahoma has 501 student athletes. We have 1,750. They have 80 coaches. We have 137. We have 93 different athletic schedules. They have 17, I believe. And so just the job description itself is much different. But when she came here, she jumped all in. The NIAAA has a certification program that in 2001 was approved, fully registered as rather by I believe it's the Certification Commission, the National Certification Commission, sorry. It's offered at many universities across the country. And I'm just going to read this press release that we received from the NIAAA. The National Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association is pleased to announce that Amanda Snyder, Assistant Director of Athletics with BAPS, has been recognized as a certified athletic administrator. To earn this distinction, Mrs. Snyder has demonstrated the highest level of knowledge and expertise in the field of interscholastic athletic administration. It's a volunteer certification process which includes a thorough evaluation of a candidate's educational background, experience, and professional contributions, as well as a rigorous, comprehensive written examination. By obtaining this level of professionalism, Mrs. Snyder is now included in an elite group of interscholastic athletic administrators nationwide. Like I said, after winning 5 state championships as a high school coach and then 12 years at the University of Tulsa, we're just so fortunate to have her here in BA serving our kids and coaches, and I think that any kid or any coach that stood up here would echo the same thing. Extremely blessed to get to work with her every day. So, man, if you'll come up here and be recognized, and y'all help me congratulate her on this accomplishment.
Just a few quick words. Members of the board, President Allen, I just want to say thank you for all that you do for Broken Arrow and for the employees and student athletes and students. We appreciate you very much. Dr. Vinson, thank you you epitomize the type of leader I strive to be, which is fair, compassionate. You are a servant leader and you always put kids first, and thank you for believing in me. Chuck Perry, without you, I don't think I would be here, and so thank you for also truly believing in me, pushing me, and guiding me through this process. And last but not least, I want to thank my incredible boss and mentor, Steve Dunn. If Darren Melton were here, I would also thank him for inspiring me. I have a pretty incredible leader to strive to be like, and without him guiding me and showing me what hard work and talent and just believing in Broken Arrow, the values, and believing in our student athletes, because he tells me every day that, we're here for a reason, and this is our passion, and this is what we do, and I'm just so thankful to be at Broken Arrow. So I appreciate you all. This is what we do for our student athletes, and it's the least I can do. So thank you.
Ms. Snyder, I would like to say thank you for everything that you've done there, because I think a key word that was highlighted in the press release was volunteering. I mean, you did this all on your own, on your free time, on your time, and for us to be blessed to get something like that from you, that's exciting. So, thank you.
Congratulations. Okay, next item, is it Kula?
Miss Kula.
Miss Kula.
So I'm going to turn it over to Miss Kula. She's the principal at Arrowhead Elementary, but we have 2 fabulous principals here that are going to be awarded a donation. And so I'm going to turn it over to Toby first.
Good evening, Mr. Allen, Dr. Vincent, and board. I want to start off first by saying that our PE teacher, Jason Black, he has great connections with our community, and I love our community, but he's got some great connections, and so he reached out to Jim Norton and asked for any kind of fundraising activities for our site. And whenever he contacted them, they actually responded back with a generous donation. And so I'm here to ask for the approval of the donation to Arrowhead. Then I'm going to turn it over to Bridget Powell. She's the principal at Aspen Creek.
Mr. Denton, Dr. Vinson, and the board, thank you for having us tonight. I received a message from a former parent of Aspen Creek who also wanted to reach out to us and bless us with a $4,000 donation to Aspen Creek. It was really special because he was a former parent of our school, and when he called, he commented that the teachers of his girls had really impacted their lives, which is what we are here to do. So that meant a lot to us. We have just created a school garden and an outdoor area for our children to learn. And one of his children's former teachers is the one that brought that garden to us. And so we are going to be able to use the $4,000, if approved, for that school garden and instructional resources. So we are asking for approval of that same donation.
Okay. Before we have some more comments, let's vote on item 7 and 8, and then let's go ahead and have them, because they're two different donations, one for each school.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. So let's go ahead and questions or discussions on item 7.
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, number 8. Any
We
discussion?
didn't get the vote button yet.
Yeah.
Did it pop up?
Oh, there we go.
I did not.
It's just so slow.
It's just Mr. Allen's computer.
Ollie messed with this, so he screwed it up. No,
Okay.
just tally it down. Item number 8. Motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen?
Yes. Okay. Discussion from the board. Comments.
I would just like to comment, I mean, that's an incredible gig to be able to, and thank you very much, Mr. Moore, the Jim Norton Chevrolet place. I mean, that's an incredible donation, and especially for the family, and I think such a great use of the money. I mean, being able to create a garden, outside garden for education, I mean, kids have got to love that. That's going to, not just impact one, but many kids, and so thank you for the contribution. It's very generous.
If I may, can I introduce them?
Absolutely.
We have the general manager, I believe that's your title, the general manager, Mr. Corrado, and then Mr. George.
Yeah, just please. First of all, thank you so much for allowing us to come and donate to the Broken Arrow Public Schools. It means a lot to us. We have 150 employees there, and a huge majority of their kids you all teach. So really thank you to all of you and everything you guys do for the community. So it's an honor for us to donate money, but your jobs are much more important than ours, but we appreciate you all, so thank you. And thank David George.
We want to say thank you before you go, and to your comments, you can donate anytime. As much as you want, anytime.
We got the green light.
We got the green light. We're ready to go. All right. I'm the parent, former parent. I'm still a parent, but I'm the former parent of kids that went to Aspen Creek. And, we're the parents of 5 daughters, and all of our daughters have been impacted in some way, some great way, by the Broken Arrow Public School system. Probably those of you who are in the teaching profession, some of you are teachers, some are administrators, some are coaches. I'm sure that at some point in your life when you were young growing up, you probably were mentored by somebody and you chose to do what you do from that. And my hat's off to you, because you've got a tough job, and I appreciate everything that you do. You guys do great work. Grading papers at midnight when it's time to go to sleep, all the things that nobody sees. The commitment that you have is incredible, and we're just thankful that we're able to donate in some small part to this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
I know, that's what's cool.
Yeah, Fort Ridge?
Yes.
Never. A tournament, it was a tournament. Mr. Black, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, next item, number 9, Mr. Larry Shackelford.
Good evening, President Allen, members of the board, Dr. Vinson. As you can see, one of our greatest selling points when we approach prospective candidates to work at Broken Arrow Schools is the example that just some of our employees got up tonight. A couple of our band directors, one of our athletic directors. You can see the passion that they have with their jobs, which defines the culture that we have here at Broken Arrow Schools. And so when we were interviewing for the Director of Construction position, that was our biggest selling point, was the culture that we have here, that it's a wonderful place to work, that we have the type of relationships here at our school district where we're all working together for the betterment of our students. So tonight, it is my pleasure to ask for your approval of the hiring of Michael Leach for the Director of Construction. Mr. Leach is an accomplished and successful project manager with more than 30 years of experience in commercial construction operations. Mr. Leach comes to us with expertise in small and large-scale construction projects from the initial programming phase to completion. Some notable projects include a $55 million renovation of the Tulsa County Library, the Tulsa Air and Space Museum's planetarium, and the addition and renovation of Broken Arrow Public Schools South Intermediate High School, which was many years ago. I won't tell you how old Mr. Leach is. Mr. Leach will play a vital role in daily operations, including management and scheduling of construction projects, bid estimating, contract negotiations, and building healthy internal and external relationships. He is prepared to significantly contribute to Broken Arrow Public Schools' objectives and core values. We are excited to have Mr. Leach join our team. His upstanding character and years of experience will be great assets to our students, staff, and community. Mr. Leach's first day will begin September 20th, 2021.
Any questions or discussion? Entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Got a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette? Yes. Mr. Denton?
Yes.
And Mr. Allen?
Yes. Is Mr. Leach here?
Mr. Leach, would you stand up and let us
Mr. Leach, would you say a couple words and maybe introduce some of your guests?
Certainly. So with me tonight are my two daughters, my daughter Catherine and my daughter Madeline. And when I started my construction career in 1988, all I wanted was a summer job. And so here I am all these years later with my summer job, and I never thought I'd have an opportunity to perform such a function for my group of people. It is my honor to be employed by Broken Arrow Public Schools. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Ollie, could you come here, please? I don't know what's going on with this. I have done nothing. This thing starts. Let's try this again. I don't know what you did, but you need to fix it. Sorry, 1 second. While he's working on that, we'll move to the public comments section of the agenda. And first up will be Aurora Rutledge. Did I say that correctly? Okay.
Mr. Allen,
Yeah.
or do I need to?
You keep track of time.
Okay. Just a 3 minute or 5 minutes?
3 minutes. Nope, 5 minutes. I apologize.
Okay.
Wait,
Short here.
here's the password.
Good evening. My name is Aurora Rutledge. I'm a Broken Arrow resident, parent, veteran nurse of a decade, and COVID long hauler. I pride myself on staying up to date with the most current education and best practices coming out from the CDC, WHO, medical journals, as well as continue to be active regarding implementation of these best practices with current medical providers. In January of 2021, I contracted COVID-19. It has been wreaking havoc in my life ever since, leaving me with a paralyzed stomach, resulting in a feeding tube, debilitating low blood pressure, and robbing me of many things I enjoy in life. However, I'm not here to talk about me. I'm here to talk about how we can protect our children and all school staff from this vicious, unforgiving virus, as well as helping decrease the burden on our already struggling hospital systems. I'm here to ask that the school board consider the science behind a multi-layer approach to keeping our children and staff safe at school as recommended by the CDC. A multi-layer approach includes mandatory masks, social distancing when possible, frequent sanitization of surfaces and hands, quarantine and isolation for exposure and symptoms, as well as contact tracing, and lastly, vaccination for those eligible. In that multi-layer approach, the CDC has recommended universal indoor masking for children ages 2 and up, as well as staff, parents, and anyone entering the building. Masking is to protect others more than the person wearing the mask. So when my high-risk 8-year-old son with Ehlers-Danlos is the only child wearing a mask in his 3rd grade class, it is frustrating that he is offered very little protection. Not to mention, when I called to excuse his absence due to quarantining after 2 positive tests in our home, I was encouraged to send him to school by administration and staff unless he showed symptoms. This causes me to question the district's bottom line with the current measures. If our goal is to allow children to be in school in person, then we must do all we can to limit their exposure. The Delta variant is far more contagious and contains a higher viral load, and it is affecting children more. But these rates are highly dependent on community transmission, i.e. contracting it from peers, family members, staff, etc. The hospitalization rates for children were 5 times higher in August this year than they were in June. In June, for age groups 0 to 4, 5 to 11, and 12 to 17 were 1.7, 1.9, and 2.9 per 100,000. In August, this jumped to 16.2, 28.5, and 32.7 per 100,000 per the CDC. Partly these numbers are due to school starting and our most vulnerable population not being protected. Why would we not do everything we can to keep each and every one of them safe? Among those in our schools are immunocompromised, those with other syndromes as well as diseases that make them even more vulnerable than your average child. They are to be protected under Section 504, Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, which you list in the Section 3 instruction guide, in which it states, the district recognizes its responsibilities to children who are or may be qualified persons with disabilities. By not mandating, we are not protecting these children, and they are not receiving their free and appropriate public education, FAPE, in which they are entitled to. Parents of children that are disabled or receiving special services in education are being forced to choose between keeping them home and not receiving those services or sending them to a cesspool with lack of protocols based on the current reintroduction plan. This is a true failure on the school system for those with disabilities. As of September 12, 2021, the 7-day average was 407 active cases in Tulsa County. But September 13, 2020, the 7-day average was 133 active cases. Last year, when numbers were lower, there was more done to protect students and their households. The numbers are skyrocketing to nearly 3 times what they were last year. And as a school system, Broken Arrow Public Schools is requiring less of their staff and students to protect one another when the exposure is 3 times more likely. How does this make sense? And on top of that, why is the system actively concealing spread and deaths within the district? The death of a high school para and middle school teacher, not to mention the middle school teachers that were on ventilators. It's extremely disrespectful to those staff members, their students, loved ones, and the community to not provide transparency during a worldwide pandemic. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away. Sweeping them under the rug creates a distrust between the school system and us as parents and guardians. If your plan was based in science, then there would be no need for hiding. You could say you are doing all you can to safeguard our most precious commodities. But the current reentry plan is based on politics and appealing to those who don't believe in a scientific approach. Instead of being more concerned about retaining your board seat next election, do the right thing and protect our kids. To quote what we were all taught in school, doing the right thing is rarely the popular thing to do. It makes more sense to implement measures to protect our biggest asset, our children as well as the staff, before more tragedy occurs. We can do better.
5 minutes is.
Time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker will be Mick Leopold. Leopold, is that correct? I'm sorry. Leopold, sorry, I apologize. Mr. Leopold, you'll have 3 minutes.
Yeah, my name is Mick Leopold. I will say that I am the proud parent of 3 daughters that all graduated from Broken Arrow Public Schools. One is probably the most passionate social worker in the country. I love her. And one's a nurse practitioner here in town. And my oldest is probably the most up-and-coming white-collar criminal defense attorney in Washington, D.C. She leans way left on me, but you can't have everything. I'm here today representing Broken Arrow Nazarene Church. We share the immediate west border with what is now the Freshman Academy. Our church, let's see, early 2019, we had discussions with Michelle Bergwall about selling the Broken Arrow Public School Systems, the back 5 acres of our land. We did that. We also had some discussion about the front 5 acres that has our buildings on it also, and we had to step away from that. On May 23rd, we sold the back 5 acres to Broken Arrow Public Schools, and at that closing, Ms. Bergwall informed our pastor and church secretary that she would be pursuing eminent domain for the rest of our property. We were a little shocked. So for the next couple of years, I tried to engage in some communication with her. Couldn't get any kind of response or honesty about their thinking, her thinking, and the threat to our church property. Early this year, I communicated with Ms. Bergwall that we have no more patience. We want to do some upgrades on our facility and need to know what's going on. Still nothing. I communicated again, explained that we were going to take a legal path to try to gain some level of clarity, and that we were also going to take this frustrating situation to the media. She then responded that we could put together an offer letter regarding our property. We did so, and still no more communication. So we're being held hostage by this, and we are again seeking some level of transparency and honesty. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will give you a copy of my comments and a copy of the letter that we sent you. Thank you. Thank you.
Next speaker, Mr. Josh Stenros. Three minutes.
Hello, members of the board. I came up here, I just wanted to talk. I don't want to talk about masks. I don't want to talk about any of that stuff. I think that I want to address something that is a little more overreaching for everybody. I want to address our transparency within the district, the perception that's put out during certain actions that we've taken. It seems that the board, the district, it seems like we end up landing on the right answer, right? It's how we get there that puts out the bad perceptions. So the example today, when we found out that these meetings would no longer be live streamed, there's no logical reason why we should walk that back. It creates transparency. It creates accessibility for parents who work, who may work further away from home than the 30-minute drive it takes to get here, or caught in traffic or several other reasons. So I wanted to come up here and express some concern when we consider policies like this. There's no good reason why we should, and I know that some of the districts around us have also stopped with their live streams, but they've also been the same districts who are currently breaking state law. And who are making a mockery of our state and our law. So I am disinterested for Broken Arrow to pursue following those footsteps more than I am the Broken Arrow to continue to lead the way when it comes to schooling and public schools. If the post itself being removed and then replaced, right? Instead of just being updated. I know that it says update on it and stuff on Facebook. And I wanted to address that real quick because the perception again is not good. There was dissenting opinions from the public about removing the live stream. And this was on both sides of the argument. It doesn't matter. COVID, no COVID. And part of the point is we're never going to get back to a pre-COVID world. We're just not. Whether we lose the mask, whether some great vaccine cures everything in the world next year, it doesn't matter. We're not going to get back to pre-COVID because now we've created a hyper-awareness in our parents, our citizenry, and our groups, and we're watching. We're watching every little thing. It's under a microscope at this point, as it should be. If we want to foster that participation, and we want to bring that participation in, like we've heard from several of the leadership here at the district, then keep it involved. Keep that channel open. If we close down those channels, we're essentially shutting the door and we're saying, yeah, we and I understand that the only benefit that it could be is for us to not get these meeting recordings
Right,
and have a chance to
thank you very much.
Edit them. Thank you.
Next speaker will be Shauna Hadrava. Yeah, Ms. Hadrava, you have 3 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything this year. It's been great so far. It's been great trying to get back to normal. I appreciate all of that. My name is Shauna Hadrava. I'm a mother to a daughter at ECHS, and I have a son at Epic. And I wanted to share some things today about information that might help the students, especially elementary kids. It's my understanding that they don't have access to Chromebooks unless they rent them for virtual days for $5 a day or $30 for the year. But not all schools have them. And I may have some of that information incorrect. This is just other parents that I've talked to. But I know that they don't have them like the older kids. I know that you've pushed out information for the emergency broadband benefit through Peach Jar. There's another funding that I don't know if you know about, and I only know about this because I work in telecommunications. And it was rolled out by the FCC. It's called the Emergency Connectivity Fund. There was a 45-day window. There's opening up a new one, if you didn't know that, if you didn't take advantage of that. On September 28th is the new window. So if you're aware of this, that's great. Hopefully with that, it takes the burden off the parents with the emergency broadband benefit, and you can go through the emergency connectivity fund. And if you don't know about that, it's at emergencyconnectivityfund.org. So, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody if you need information.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our last speaker this evening, save the best for last, Miss Leiter. Miss Angela Leiter. 3 minutes.
Good evening, Dr. Vinson, President Allen, and board members. I'm Angela Leiter, and I'm the parent of 2 Broken Arrow students. First of all, you guys and gals have a tough job, and most people I know wouldn't want to even do it. People are too wrapped up and busy in their own lives to be involved. I think we've seen this in the last few years. So I'm here tonight to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives to make decisions that affect many of us. I know I'm missing my own kids' sporting events tonight just to be here, but they know why, because we discuss these things as a family. So thank you for having in-person school this year as an option. Thank you for making this school year a little bit more normal for our children. Thank you for allowing parents to make the choices that they know are best for their families. And thank you for not forcing a one-size-fits-all rule across the district. And finally, I want to say thank you for not breaking the law, like some districts we see currently doing in our state. Thank you for not wasting our taxpayer money that would be tied up in lawsuits if you chose to break the law. So thank you. It warmed my heart and it made me smile to be able to walk my children into school for the first day of school this year. And let's keep setting and being the example for our state here in Broken Arrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item will be Ms. Dias and Mr. Bowser. Item 81, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Is the next item on the agenda.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Allen, Dr. Vinson, members of the board. Mr. Bowser and I are here this evening just to discuss and talk about some few changes to the reentry plan, specifically in regards to distance learning and transportation as well. So I'll get started. Do you have the PowerPoint, or you want me just to? It's okay. I'll just talk about it. I know them. So one of our plans, just so you know, is on the reentry plan. Anytime that we update it, we will make the changes on the website, and it'll be in red. And our communications team has done a great job. They put the edit date next to it, so our patrons always know when we update. Assuming this gets approved this evening, then tomorrow our communications team will send out a school messenger as well, so people know what to look for and they can address those changes themselves. So we had all best intents at the beginning of the year, to have as normal of a year as possible. But one thing we've noticed, we want to continue to be safe and keep our healthy practices. So we'll include that frequent hand washing. Those aren't major changes. We just are making sure our teachers, especially our younger students, are reminding those kiddos, wash your hands, stay home when ill. It sounds like there might be some confusion over quarantining. So we'll make sure we clarify that with our administrators and make sure everybody knows what the expectations, especially if a student has a positive case or teacher. So one of the changes that they will see is just something about special education programming. And it just basically states that should the district transition to distance learning, those parents will be notified of any special changes directly related to special ed programming. And we did that last year as well. If a student can't attend in person, our special ed team works with those families and helps them as much as we possibly can. We also are going to re-implement the cleaning procedures that we did last year. We never stopped cleaning at all, but one of the things that we did do last year was between every class, the teachers wiped down the desks, excuse me. Then we had the is it Tersano spray?
Mm.
Tersano spray. They were really good about it. A lot of the teachers have still done it. We didn't mandate it this year between each class. We are continuing that practice again. So you may have heard some of our teachers talk about getting to wear jeans, because we know it's a hardship on them. They wear their nice clothes to work, and not that stains or anything, but it is a perk to them. So we asked them, if we continue this cleaning practice, you can wear jeans if you choose to do so. And most of them were already doing it. We haven't heard any complaints about it because they were already really doing that. I didn't talk about the distance learning, did I? I'm sorry, I'm kind of going out of order. One other thing, and then I'm going to let him talk about transportation. We've been really fortunate. We have not had to close many classrooms at all. I think one or two at the most. One. So, but one thing we wanted to make sure was in the reentry plan is how we will make those decisions if we have to go to a distance learning decision. So Mr. Blackburn works with the principal. We monitor those daily COVID numbers every day, positive cases, and if we see that there's a classroom that has 3 or more positive cases within a 10-day window, he starts having conversations with those principals. And so we actually transitioned a class at an elementary school last week to distance learning. The principal then contacts Ms. Peterson or Ms. James or Ms. Hennis, and they just talk about how we can provide that learning for the students, and then we make the decision to transition. Okay? So now I'll let you talk.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about transportation, just letting you know that when Ms. Dias was talking about cleaning protocols, we're still continuing those cleaning protocols on buses. There's still hand sanitizer available for students and those kinds of things. Additionally, I just want to speak generically to transportation and talk about just our driver situation, because the pandemic, as I've talked about last year, has adversely affected a situation that is not fantastic already. I mean, there's a nationwide driver shortage on bus drivers. We as a district have a number of open positions. The pandemic complicates that. And so consequently, as a department, one of the things the Transportation Department is working on is sort of a 3-tiered approach and being able to ensure that we provide transportation. The first level is to eliminate as many or combine as many routes as possible. And so over the course of the past couple of weeks, we've been able to eliminate in the ballpark of 8 to 10 routes. In other words, combining those transportation routes. That's largely done by the elimination of dead stops. At the beginning of the school year, we don't know how many kids are going to ride, who's going to ride, so we have to prepare for that. So we have to put bus stops all over the district. Then as we sort of get a pattern and we see that developing, then we can eliminate those stops where no kids are riding. As we eliminate those stops where no kids are riding, then we can combine, we can sort of change the routing process and eliminate the need for certain buses because we may only have 5 kids on that bus, so we can easily put them on another route or another bus. So all of that, that's been sort of the first tier response to be able to ensure that we can continue to transport kids. The second tier response is taking a look at our routing procedures, and as we have a number of absences, whether it's pandemic related, driver shortages themselves, or just call-ins, sometimes families have to be gone. They can't make it to work, for whatever reason. It cannot even be pandemic related. But all of those things cause driver shortages in a scenario where we already have them. So as a result, the Transportation Department is working on a second tier where we would eliminate service to part of the district to ensure that the other half of the district can continue to go to school. And we would do it on a rotating basis, really an A schedule, B schedule kind of thing, where we would provide service to part of the district on one day and then provide service to part of the district on the other day. What that kind of looks like is it's divided upon middle school quadrants. So we take, for example, Centennial Middle School, which has Creekwood and the Country Lanes are the feeder schools. And so if that school was impacted, then we would eliminate service and transition those school sites to distance learning for that day, much like we would do, if you can think about it this way, much like a snow day, where we would implement those same distance learning procedures to be able to ensure that we then don't run routes in that area so that we can use those drivers to be able to run routes for the rest of the district, if that makes sense. So the goal is to provide as much service as possible for as long as possible. And we want to do that safely and responsibly. And so that's really our approach in a second tier, because we know that it's really important for kids to be able to be in school. And we also know it's a hardship for our families to have unplanned availability of buses. So we want to try to minimize that as much as possible while still providing as much service as possible. It's a complicated algorithm that there's no easy solution to. And so for us, this seems to make the most sense in being able to split that burden and divide that burden as much as possible so that it doesn't create an undue hardship on specifically one family or one part of the population. And then the third tier of response is in a situation where we don't have drivers enough to really make school happen. Unfortunately, if we have to cancel bus service, in our world, we know that a lot of kids rely upon that. I mean, ridership has increased this year. Eligible ridership has increased this year. And we know that there are some families that probably could continue to bring their kids to school. Even if the bus didn't run, they could potentially bring their kids to school. But the problem or issue with that is that if we have a school in session that all the kids that could possibly make it to school, you just have school, it becomes a nightmare in terms of tracking of which kids are supposed to be at school, which kids are supposed to be at home. I wouldn't know probably by the end of the school day whether a kid didn't show up that was supposed to show up. I don't think it's safe or responsible of us to continue to have school in that instance. So in a situation where we don't have enough drivers, the third tier response for us to be able to provide transportation is to not provide it if we don't have enough drivers. And so that's a fluctuating number. I mean, that moves up and down based upon absences and absenteeism and all those kinds of things. What will never happen is a scenario where we start the day at 6 a.m. We're gonna transport kids. We're not gonna let parents know, even if the kids are late to school, even if we have to double up in the afternoon. We've already had scenarios this school year where we've had to have drivers run 2 and 3 runs. In other words, they've had to take a group of kids home and then come back to the school and take another group of kids home and come back to the school. So we've already experienced some of that shortage. So we're not talking about a scenario where, well, it's just inconvenient to be able to get kids to school, or it's just inconvenient to get kids home. We're talking about a scenario where students are going to miss significant portions of school that we would even look at beginning trying to cancel transportation or stop transporting via bus. So we will do everything possible to avoid those scenarios. We even had a recruitment day today. We'll have recruitment for drivers in the future. But as I started at the beginning, it's a nationwide shortage. I was shared a news article today where in the state of Massachusetts they're calling in the National Guard to be able to assist with bus driving. And so it is just, we've seen places in Florida where they're paying parents to transport their kids to school. I mean, like, there are just all kinds of different solutions that districts around the country are trying to deal with this. So we've come up with what we feel like is the best possible plan for us to ensure that as many kids get to school safely and responsibly each and every day.
Mr. Bowser, a couple of other points that I remember us discussing as a leadership team is the older siblings. We heard a lot of feedback last year that, well, my older siblings are the ones that watch my younger ones. So unless you do it by quadrant, then those older siblings are sometimes taken out of the mix.
Right.
And this is so hard on working parents. It's not fair to them to just say we're not going to offer any bus service either. You think about especially a single working parent, there's no one else to rely on. And that's not fair or right to only provide access to school for some kids and not all. And I'm glad that you spoke about our recruitment efforts, because we have tried so hard. We increased bus driver pay, trying to lure bus drivers here. So if anyone watching or listening knows someone who's looking for a great part-time job driving a bus, please call us. We would love to have you join our team.
You know, one of the challenges we've talked about is just the increased requirements to get a CDL and what that takes now to get a commercial driver's license versus when I was originally certified, 18 years ago. It's vastly different. And so because of that, it makes recruitment even harder. I was just talking to a colleague today about her husband who has CDL and was looking at getting recertified, but the requirements are just too lengthy and conflict with other things that he has going on. And so like there are just obstacles that are sometimes just really difficult to overcome. Doesn't mean we don't continue to try to overcome them. That doesn't mean we don't try to find different ways or try to be innovative and work with different departments to potentially use a CDL driver, that's a athletic coach to, drive an athletic shuttle or something like that. But what it does mean is that there are no easy solutions, so we just continue to try and find the best solutions that we can.
And we can't say this enough either, that we're a large district of square miles. So when you look at area districts, not all of them have the square miles that we do. So comparatively, Ashley, how many bus drivers do we need to run all of our routes versus maybe one of our neighboring districts?
You can defer that question.
Yeah, can I defer that question? How many do we need versus?
Is she not here this evening?
Okay, so we need 78, Bixby needs 30, so that's a good comparison.
Yeah.
Mr. Belger, you brought up the item about Massachusetts and the National Guard. Well, I brought up in the past about working that out with our local National Guard when it comes to substitute teachers 2 years ago, I believe, about doing that. I mean, we are in a crisis with bus drivers, the COVID issue. I mean, I don't know why we can't speak to our governor about trying to get that done for us here in our state and make that work.
Well, that's the first thing I thought of, Mr. Allen, when I saw that article today. Like, why is that just an option for Massachusetts? Why can't that be an option for Oklahoma?
I brought that up 2 years ago about substitute teaching when this first pandemic started.
Yeah.
Because we were in a crisis. The government had declared an emergency.
Right.
So I don't know why we can't ask them to help us out. The government asked how he can help. Here's the chance. Here's the chance.
It's a real tangible way.
Absolutely.
For sure.
And we did talk to them, and at the time they weren't really conducive to that, but maybe with the governor's urging, we might be able to get some help.
Do you have any other questions or comments? Anything?
Well, I think it's imperative of us as a board to speak to the mask issue before we move on. I believe our numbers were down the last 3 days from staff and students, correct?
Yes, I'm looking at Mr. Blackburn. Is that correct, Mr. Blackburn?
I can't speak for the staff, but I do know our students were down.
Is our staff counts are down?
But compared to where we were this time last year?
We're lower than this time last year.
So last year we had less cases?
Last year we had less cases at this time.
Okay. So, and what have we changed?
What have we changed in regards to last year?
So cleaning protocol and masks?
Yes, we put those in play. But last year also, we started school later, and therefore, we start to see the uptick in the scenarios until much later in the school year.
January was our peak last year. And just comparative to last year, we ran some numbers, and the student numbers have been about, overall, since we started, about 6 times what they were last year. So there's a significant increase. And
Right
to
now,
answer your
looking
question,
at
the difference was masks.
The student numbers that I saw, are they, I mean, at this point in time, and I can't recall what last year was, are we at, is it under 1% or was it 1 point something percent or?
It's under.
We're under 1% for students, we're over 1% for staff.
Okay, I couldn't remember off the top of my head, and so that might be something.
And that is one thing I didn't mention when we talked about distance learning at the sites and by classrooms. We would transition to distance learning at a school if they were short staff. Because like Mr. Bowser referred to, it's not going to just be teachers who get COVID. The flu is going to start going around, then head cold, people have lives, something's going to, so that is in that plan as well. But again, it's like he said too, we wouldn't make that decision in the morning of school. We would get through the day.
Just as a board, I mean, from my personal perspective, something that I would like to, for people that's going to be watching this or people that are hearing right now, I mean, this is probably one of the toughest decisions that presents itself to us as a school board. And I want to say from a personal perspective, as a board, I'm confident we're going to make decisions. We're going to think through the information and the data based purely on Broken Arrow. We're not going to make a knee-jerk reaction based on what some other districts and things like that are doing or what our peers are doing or things like that, because I don't think that's right. I think today, we're looking at data, and I'm confident among us as well as the key things that we look for our staff, our teachers, our administrators to do is one, educate students. That is the top of our priority list. Yes, we want them safe, and that also comes along with that. But again, I know I'm gonna make my decision based off of what's occurring in Broken Arrow and not necessarily what Jinx has done or what Union has done, because again, we do have some laws that we're adhering to and stuff. So the other aspect of that is, I also have a grandchild that's in the Broken Arrow Public Schools. So I also have that side that also plays into some of that thought process as well. There's not a perfect answer out here right now at all. So I think, our conversations that we have here tonight is, I wanted to put that out there so that maybe we do have candid conversations and discuss, what are we doing and what is the impact, because again, I was pleased that we didn't see this giant surge of cases. One case is bad, period. I mean, any kid getting it is terrible, period. But I also think how we educate, and I think the important thing is I struggle with, do I want my teachers being the mask police? Do I want our teachers having to worry about it? I mean, you can see all kinds of studies that are either yes, they work, or no, they don't. But again, I think we have to make sound decision based on what's good in Broken Arrow, what's happening in Broken Arrow, and what do we want our teachers to do in Broken Arrow. So just kind of just putting that out there from that perspective. And so, one thing, Ms. Dias, I'd like us to maybe I heard something earlier, and I don't know if it's the case or not, but is the quarantine question, like if somebody in the household was positive?
So that's not accurate information, so we will review that with our principals. So
Yeah,
basically what we're doing right now is if a student obviously has COVID, we contact trace the kiddos who are around there. If we know for a fact that we had a student with COVID in our building and that student was exposed, they don't have to have a doctor's note. We give them the option. We ask them if they do return to monitor symptoms and to wear a mask if they choose to do so, but we don't tell them they have to have a doctor's note. If we've talked to our principals a lot about if they have a family member and they call us and say, Grandpa was with Grandpa all weekend, he had COVID, we take it family by family because sometimes we have students who didn't come to school at all last year. So we also have to do the safety welfare check of our students. So we've asked, it's been hard on our principals because we have them have conversations with every single family. And so then if it was Mr. Bowser and he called in and said his dad had COVID and his son's not coming and he hasn't missed anything, we'd be like, okay, we'll consider that. If his son hadn't been to school in 3 weeks and he's been exposed 3 times in a row, we probably would ask for a doctor's note or for him to go see his doctor because we want to make sure we need to lay eyes on that student. I mean, that's our responsibility as well. We have to make sure our kids are safe. So if the kid has
sound decision making, I mean, to me.
And it is challenging for our principals. It's a lot of discretion, but we want to make sure the kids are safe in all regards.
And I think what I was really referencing to was what you last talked about was having a household member or somebody that was positive and that child was exposed to it. What are we doing with that scenario? Because even though the person may not be showing symptoms or things like that, they could still possibly, be a carrier or have that being shared. So I think that's a sensitive area that we need to maybe you are giving attention to that and looking at
We
that.
have,
but that's
Mr.
just
Blackburn's
one of
team's
those
done a great job
components.
with the nurses and the health aides and the
Okay.
principals, and yes,
Good.
they've done a great job. But if there is confusion, because it sounds like there is, that's obviously something we just need to continue to work with our staff on and make sure that we're communicating the right information.
Why do you think our numbers have gone down in the last 3 days? Have we done anything different? We've gone down like
He's looking
30,
at it.
40 kids, right?
So some of that has to do with the anomaly of just general exposure itself. And then you have the issue of, we have introduced more cleaning, but I can't necessarily say that by us going to school that we have identified a lot of positive exposure to each other. We have had a few of those scenarios, but we're still seeing a large number of anomalies outside of school. Does that help?
And that is something we talked about on those distance learning days. If we do have to go to distance learning for a building, like on the bus routes, we will use that to do extra deep cleaning as well.
Well, with the law, I mean, you see districts passing these so-called mandates because of the injunction on the law. But I think they're saying a mandate just in pure semantics, because the injunction clearly states a student can opt out for any personal reason. It doesn't give you a list of what those personal reasons can and can't be. So it's really not a mandate. I mean, are we going to police the opt-out? Do we have a plan to police that? Do we have a plan to track those? Is they didn't say you have to give a time period of opt-outs either, of you got to do it by September the 13th through this date. If a kid comes to school one day and says, hey, I don't want to wear it, let me get an opt-out form. I mean, so that scenario in itself causes problems in trying to teach kids on a daily basis. And I think it's most important that parents do what they think is very, very best for their children and the safety of their children every day. And if that's the mask, they need to do that. But I think to say, put the pressure on the board that you need to pass a mask mandate when it's clearly not a mask mandate. It's not enforceable. Are we going to send a kid home, or are we going to suspend a kid that doesn't have a mask on? If we're not going to do that, then why are we passing this so-called mandate to wear masks? So I think it's all verbiage that we're giving people to say we're passing a mask mandate, because it clearly states that they can opt out for any personal reason, and you can't deny that. So I think it creates a semantic issue of it's a mandate or not a mandate. So the injunction has not changed the law in my eye one bit. And I'm not breaking the law. If we want to, if it's the board's pleasure to pass a mask mandate with an opt-out, that is going to be a crazy scenario we're going to create within our school. Then do we put masks on Friday nights at these packed football stadiums that they've been going to for 3 weeks and sitting side by side and yelling for 3 hours? Are we not going to allow them into the gyms to go to volleyball games without masks on? I mean, we better have a very good plan if that's what we choose to do as a board, because it's easy for us to say, yes, let's pass one, but you guys got to go implement it, deal with the problems that arise from it. We had 4 people commit suicide last year. 4 people during COVID last year. I didn't see one speaker go to that podium and talk about doing something for mental health and suicide. None. One death of COVID's bad. One death of any of our students, but I didn't see one person up there about that. This has turned political. It's divided our community. We are better than this. We're Broken Arrow. We lead the way. And it's like you said, it's the hardest thing. It's the most difficult and stressful thing I've ever dealt with in my time on the board. And you know what? I'm a big boy. I can handle it. But that we need to educate kids. We're not in the medical field here. And it's just frustrating. So I apologize. My rant.
Well, I think you pointed out and kind of reiterated again, I struggle with asking you or our teachers to be the police masks. And, I want them to be educating the children day in and day out, to be able to identify, are there needs, are there mental stresses? Are they seeing physical? I want them to be able to see those things and not have to worry about this mask business. But on the same sense, you know, I also think you pointed out is, you know, doing what you think as a parent, you know, having my child to wear a mask if I feel more comfortable with that. Granted, it doesn't help me if the person next to me, but, you know, again, I think, you know, studies have shown one way or the other, the way that you can see this go down, and it makes it extremely difficult. So I know that I will continue, and what I continue to ask the administration and your team to do is to continue to provide us the data that we're seeing daily. I would like to see that in a more historical perspective so that we can look at it from a trend perspective. Because, you know, as I said before, this is an evolution of what we're going through. If we get into the winter months and we start seeing things, it's going to drive decision making. But, you know, right now, you know, I think social distancing as where we can, making certain we're cleaning as much as we can, and you know, I asked the question, are we able to clean certain rooms in certain times? And, you know, you all have answered that and have been able to step up to the plate and make certain those things are happening. We're cleaning between, what I didn't hear, but I got an answer was we're cleaning between classrooms in the secondary level. So, you know, everything, you know, all these steps I think are contributing to us keeping a control of this. I mean, so I think as we continue to watch this, I'm not ready to step out and say, let's mandate masks. But again, I'm one of 5, so this is, you know, everybody else's vote. But I will personally say I'm not ready to step out there. I know I don't always wear a mask. If I get into a place where I don't see my ability to be able to keep a distance, I will put a mask on. But again, that's me making the decision, and I want parents and kids and stuff to be able to make that decision as well too. Sanitizing, washing my hands, all these things that we do, we're doing daily and continuously to try and drive down those numbers. But again, I'm going to try and make my decisions based on what's happening here in Broken Arrow and not let the pressure, peer pressure of other districts and peer pressure of a lot of tensions coming from whether it's social media or wherever, trying to drive us to make decisions. It's purely going to be based on Broken Arrow's results and what's happening here today and what I want my teachers and administrators doing versus chasing something else.
And like Mr. Allen said, we are not in the medical profession, but I am, and I have been a healthcare provider for 20 years. And there's a reason that surgeons and your dental hygienists, they wear a mask, and that's so they don't spread their germs to their patient. So we know masks work, especially you know, ones that the surgeons and stuff would wear. But I also agree that the law does not say we can mandate masks. We can't. The law says that any person that wants to opt out can opt out. And so I agree, as much as I do think masks, you know, that's why I asked Mr. Blackburn, what have we changed? Our numbers have 6 times more, I think, this year than we did last year. And what we've changed is masking. I think masking is what kept us in person last year. But I 100% agree that the mask, the leeway that they gave us with that injunction was to make a mask mandate with an opt-out. So if we have 20,000 students and 19,000 of them opt out, what is the good in that? And what do we tell our teachers? Like if they're walking in the hall, are they supposed to carry an opt-out card? Like, you know, that's the logistics there are not, it's just not feasible. That's just silly. But I think we can be responsible adults. And when you say we're not medical providers, we're not. But there's a lot of people in scientific positions that we're, like last year, we said we're taking the advice of the CDC. Well, that went out the window, I guess. I mean, so even if we can't say you have to wear masks, I think that we should be maybe even encouraging mask wearing, or like you said, encouraging the hand sanitizing, the hand washing, the social distancing when possible. But saying overall we can do a mask mandate, we just can't legally. We just can't, because like I said, I am a healthcare provider. I do believe in masking. I do believe that masking decelerates the spread of disease. But with that being said, we do not have the option to mandate that every student wears a mask. We just don't.
And I agree with you on it, just as a conversational piece. I mean, I agree that a mask can prevent, but when you see it either improperly worn, or people have touched it several times, or it's gotten wet, or it's folded in a way that it's not protecting, or people wear those real thin things that are the neck deals that don't really work. Those are just too thin. They don't work. I mean, I've gone out and read tons of things, and so, and the other side of that as well, even if it helped one or two people, hey, my mic's working better. You know, I can see us having that challenge as well too, but I agree with you, Brandy. I mean, I do think that it can help, but right now we're just not in a place where we can have that mandate at all. I think, hey, we recommend it where if you feel you need to wear it, and we can ask people to wear them if we think we should on that. But again, it's really comes down to a voluntary position that people are in at this point in time. And so I agree with you, Mr. Allen. I think the mandate is
well, because a lot of
semantics.
employers are mandating masks, and then you can, you know, maybe have an exemption for a health reason, or you can have an exemption for a certain reasons. But this injunction doesn't get, like, there can be any, like, I stubbed my toe and the mask makes it worse. Like, you can have any reason you want and opt out of the mask. So there's not, that just makes it too hard on the administration, I think. I think that it would make a process out of a problem that doesn't really need a process, because it's...
But I don't think this topic is dead. I mean, not at all, because, I mean, just as I said, we're evolving through this. We're going to look at the data. We're going to continue to watch the numbers. We've got great administration that's helping make decisions. You're looking at it daily. We're doing as much as we can to try and prevent the spread. And I think that's, at this point in time, with what the numbers I'm seeing and where we're at, and again, focusing on the children's education and well-being mentally, and, you know, just trying to get through those things. I feel like we continue to look at where we're at and what we're doing. I mean, we're not seeing a spike. I'm not seeing a spike in the numbers. Let me just say that. I'm not seeing a spike in what I've seen in the numbers. And I mean, I'm comfortable with, I want us to make certain we're doing all the cleaning. We're doing everything we can to try and prevent the spread. And if we do have distance learning needs, that we immediately act on those. And we look at we don't just stay status quo. We continually just challenge what we're doing, and are there things that we can do in the future that will help, you know, prevent this. So that's where I'm at with this. And I think, again, you know, for this month's meeting, you know, I like the changes or, you know, the additional stuff that you put out there, the edits, and making certain people are aware. One question I did have, Mr. Bowser, that came up and I forgot to ask was, as we navigate through the varying levels of transportation, one, I'm appreciative that at 6 a.m. you're not like making that decision not to drop kids off, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. But on a serious note, the communication piece of that, have we thought about, you know, if we, and if we haven't, that's okay. I know it's an evolution, but if we need to think about how we're going to communicate that if we do make those changes, because I think, you know, the impact of parents is substantial. The impact of the kids is substantial. And I mean, it just blows. I mean, this whole thing is messing with people's lives and their routines and stuff like that.
Like you said, the communication and as much advanced notice as possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
And varying channels, not just, you know, I think that's, because I mean, I know you all flood the market with whether it's calls or emails or, And I think that's wonderful that you do that, because again, certain people are phone people, some people are email people, some
Right.
people are Facebook people, some people are, let me hear it by my neighbor people. So, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. We will make sure that parents are notified as early as possible and through a variety of means. To it's again much like a snow day and how we notify parents that way. And so, but we want to provide as much notice as possible. We don't want parents to wake up on the first thing in the morning and then not be able to go to school. I think that's we struggle through to make it through that day, and then we can provide notice later in the day that, hey, maybe we're not having school tomorrow or whatever the case may be as a result of
As
the
we're
shortage.
reporting our staff numbers, are we dividing it up so that our public can see that we have, 10
Teachers.
bus drivers out and 8 teachers?
We are not currently, and yeah.
Principals
Oh,
only?
we are?
That-
Okay.
Because
realize
I
it was
think that
divided.
would help, because if we
It
know
helps.
what that level is of bus drivers being out, that it's gonna push us into, okay, we're gonna have to start.
Well, and what that doesn't account for is obviously the number of vacancies that we have,
Right.
as well as the number of call-ins. It's in large part, this plan is the pandemic just pushes us over the edge. It's not really, honestly, it's not the catalyst to the problem. It just is a contributing factor to the problem.
I think though if we could do something like that, though, at least it would give a little bit of warning if I'm a parent and I see, oh, okay, I know that the, DEFCON 3 is at this level, then I can be prepared and start making some arrangements for my kids. Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you go over just real quick, briefly, the steps that possibly could come from the bus? You gave a long explanation about stuff, and I appreciate that. And
Sure.
I was in tune, but just so we can.
So we have a 3-tiered response. The first tier is to become more efficient, figure out the places we can eliminate stops, combine routes. We've done some of that. We still have a little bit more of that to do.
That's where we had a lot of success with that last year, correct?
Yeah, we did. Actually, one of the saving graces of last year was that we transitioned to what are called centralized stops. Which increased the walkout distance of some of our kiddos, so that meant that they didn't all have a bus stop in front of their door, but that also meant that we were able to keep buses going and all of that kind of thing. And part of that efficiency this year, we continued with centralized stops because it felt like that was a real win. The shortage hasn't gone away.
So we're doing centralized stops?
And we're still continuing to do that, yes, sir.
Across the district, or just
across the district?
Okay.
Yes, sir. And then so we're in the process of making those bus routes more efficient by eliminating stops where we can, combine routes where we can, those kinds of things. So that's our first level of response: be as efficient as we can. Second level of response then becomes, if we have to eliminate service, we only want to partially eliminate service. So if we eliminate service, like I'll just do a hypothetical for you. It might help with understanding. If we eliminate service to Centennial, then we would eliminate service to Creekwood and Country Lane. And then we may also have to simultaneously not have service that day for like Oliver and its feeder schools. And so what that does is that it buys us the ability to then transport everybody that's in the geographical area of the other 3 middle schools, all the other elementaries, and then all the high school level kids that are in those geographical areas as well. And so if our thought process behind that is that gets a large number of our student population in school for that particular day, and then if that outage continues, this shortage continues, and we have to continue it to a second day, then we just flip-flop and we provide service to the middle schools that we didn't have service to before on the prior day, as well as those elementaries, and then continue those high school kids to their campuses as well. So in an effort to try and provide as much service as possible and provide those resources. And then the third tier would be where we make the decision that half of our drivers are gone, we can't really provide service at all. So in an effective measure.
So do we need this 78 bus drivers to do what we're doing today for the centralized?
So
do you have to
But-
have CDC license to run the special needs or the sports
CDL.
shuttles
CDL.
or anything like that? Or CDL?
CDC.
CDC, not CDC.
Depends on the size of the bus.
The
smaller
weight.
14-passenger buses, you don't need a CDL.
Just any old person can drive?
Well, we put you in 19 hours of training.
You cannot drive, not without being trained.
But that's 78 bus drivers for what we're doing now for centralized pickup.
Yeah, that's our regular ed transportation,
What
and that's
was it
what we're
prior?
that's what we talk about in large part when we talk about outages, because even if a site goes to distance learning, we still transport our special ed population. Like they still that we did that last year when we transitioned to distance learning. We still transport our special ed population, so they don't even figure that part. We just continue to do. Regardless of the outages, what it really impacts is our regular ed population.
How many bus drivers did we need prior to the centralized pickups?
I don't have a number there.
Robin, I think it saved us 15 rounds.
Saved us 15 to 20, we're now 15.
Yeah.
So what was the?
So it saved us 15 to 20 by switching to the centralized routes.
15 to 20 drivers.
Mhm. And as of today, our vacancies were at about 19. Is that right? Yeah, we have 19 vacancies.
And we switched from, they were part-time at one time, now they're full-time.
They are full-time. Yes, that is correct.
And increase the hourly rate.
Yeah.
Benefits.
Yeah.
Mr. Bowser, one question that might come up is why don't we allow other kids, like if they can get a ride and it's not the AB day for them to be there, why don't we let them come to school? That's something we talked about a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so the issue becomes if we say we can't provide bus service to let's say Aspen Creek, we can't provide bus service to Aspen Creek. The problem becomes is that if we allow Aspen Creek to stay open and have in-person service or in-person learning for whoever can get to Aspen Creek, it becomes a nightmare to track, much like you all were talking about masks and opting out. It becomes a nightmare to figure out who opted out of transportation to come to school and who didn't opt out of transportation to come to school. And the parents think, well, you know, my son went to school, and it's 3 hours later that we discover all of a sudden that little Ashley isn't at school. And so it can become problematic at that point.
Don't we
because
take attendance?
We do take attendance, absolutely.
I mean, as soon as that kid's marked absent, we would know that the parent should know that that kid's not there if they're following them through the Parent Connect. I don't know what the name of it is now, but.
Right. Yeah, no, that's not the issue. Like, we would still take attendance. The question is, though, we would excuse that attendance of those, like if you were going to say, little Ashley rides the bus every single day, bus service is not provided. Well, if we allowed little Steve and little Janet to come to school and told little Ashley he could come to school if he can get there, well, we can't hold that attendance against him because, and so then it becomes problematic. Like, is he really absent, or is he not supposed to be absent because he was supposed to ride the bus? Those determinations become a little more difficult.
I see what you're saying there.
And so it becomes a tracking nightmare. So it's just, that doesn't even consider the difficulties on having, like, you know, my third grade classroom has, you know, 12 kids that are here and 12 kids that aren't, and how do I manage that? So that's another layer, but it's about, I think, having school safely and responsibly. And at the point that you're trying to track down kids and figure out are they here or are they not here, it becomes
On that
problematic.
last point you made about the teachers cannot be made strongly enough. Trying to keep up with, 9 kids at home and 12 in the classroom and who's done what, and our teachers just killed themselves last year trying to keep up with all that. We can't keep doing that. It's just not fair, and we can't keep up that pace.
So let me ask you this, if we had to say no transportation, we automatically default to distance learning? I mean, because.
For that site.
For the entire site?
Mm-hmm. For that site.
Okay. I thought if you can't service the district, you were just going to do it. Everyone was going to be, but it's going to be site-based.
It's going to be site-based as much as we can to eliminate to keep from eliminating service district-wide.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So we're going to try to get to as many kids to school as possible, but at the point we feel like it's not really feasible to get a significant number of kids to school, then we would cancel it district.
It's similar to what we did last year with the staff
Yes.
at
Yep.
the actual building.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's
Including
Except for it's kind of done by quadrant and feeder schools so that we don't have some of the feeder schools coming to school and some of them not. And
Right.
it creates a
But there's
classroom where you do have half the kids there and half not.
But there's no intention for it to be long-term. It's to
No.
that staff.
That's why it would be like an A-B rotation, much like a snow day. Sometimes, I mean, reality is, and Mr. Moore could speak to this better than I can, but reality is that your transportation staffing can vary widely from day to day. And so one day may be really hard, and the next day feel really feasible. So our goal in implementing this plan is to sort of bridge the gap and go those days that look just unmanageable, that we have a plan in place to be able to kind of bridge that gap until it becomes manageable again. So it really is, we're talking about short-term solutions here. We're not talking about district-wide shutdown for a week because of transportation.
And that's what it's trying to avoid. It's a
we're
half
trying to
step in
avoid that.
between, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Do we still have the mask mandate on the buses?
The students are not required, the drivers are not required. We have encouraged the drivers, but it's not required.
Did that federal law did that federal law change?
Well, the federal, my understanding is that it's a recommendation, not a law.
That was my understanding last year also.
Is a recommendation, and that because of the state law, we're not allowed to.
Because the district's attorney at the time had a different viewpoint on that, and he thought that, well, his opinion was that it was a federal mandate in the law, and I disagreed with it at that point. So we are not. It is not mandated on the buses now, and now we know it was an opinion. Okay. And I'm just going to throw my 2 cents in on this. I think it's important that all the board speak on the mask mandate. It should be a personal choice. You know, I spoke up before. I told several that, you know, I would not go with a mask mandate unless somebody with more authority than us, and I'm going to stick to my word on that position. It should be a personal choice. You should choose for your kid on whether you want that child masked or not. We can't impose it on another child what needs to be done. That should be up to the parents. The biggest thing is like we've heard up here, it's just not practical. We can't enforce it. It's not possible. You know, you have the other districts that are saying you're opt out, and now you want parents to come in. Well, these are going to be unmasked parents coming in to opt out. You're compounding the problem if you truly think that's what it is, and we need to mandate this thing. And then we talk about the differences in the positive cases this year versus last year. Testing wasn't as available as it is this year. I mean, you can go get a test in 30 minutes down here at CVS. You couldn't do that this time last year. And last year it was a different strain. Kids were asymptomatic back then. Now with this new variant that's coming through, it is affecting kids, and you've got to be smart. This is serious, and there's another variant that's coming down the pipe, and we've got to be prepared. But that's got to be up to the parents' choice. Whether they want those kids masked. There shouldn't be any issue if a kid wants to be masked and he believes that and comes to school. That's all about him. And you know what? If there's an issue with it, that needs to be addressed. And I have not heard that this year. But to expect the school to be responsible for checking up and make sure if a kid is opted out I can tell you from 6th grade and above, it's not practical at all. There's no way. They change classes every hour. And then we go out here Friday night to a 5,000, 8,000 football stadium because the way it's imposed it's proposed is that it's got to be on school sites. It's not possible for us to throw a mandate. It's a semantics. It's a cheap, cheesy way to make people think that. So, that's my 2 cents on this thing. I'm not going to be supportive of a mask mandate. That's up to the parents. That's their choice if they want to do that. I'm not against mask or that. That's their option if they want to choose that.
Well, John, to your point, though, and to you, Brandy, I'm not going to question do they work, not work. I mean, that's it's what they're asking us to do as a board. Before it was the state said everyone shut down after spring break, no school. Then it was you're going to have school, you're going to have masks on school properties. Now it's like, well, they passed the law, but yet now they give these provisions in the law that it really doesn't say it has any teeth that say you can mandate anything. So they just keep moving. The goalposts just keep moving all the time. That's probably the most difficult thing. I'm not going to downplay the severity of it. like many, I've lost family members as well. I know it's severe. I know it's deadly. People have to take the precautions, do everything they can to protect themselves.
Absolutely.
But as far as a mask mandate, the injunction does not allow for a mandate. When you have an opt-out procedure, that you guys cannot even begin, the district, to police or monitor or really make it effective without a true interruption of the educational process. So that's kind of where I'm.
Our kids have struggled for the past 2 years because of the lack of face-to-face instructions. That's what we're designed to do, and that's what we need to secure. And, you know, I've had not one teacher complain or want to have the mask mandate. They want to be able to teach their kids. They want to be able to see their kids and be able to teach face-to-face. That's what they have dedicated their life to do, and that's what I'm going to support.
And I will coattail on that as well too, because I mean, I want to try and make the right decision for everyone as well too. And again, I will say that there's not been an overwhelming, one way or the other, push of information to me that people are sending and saying, I need this. I've solicited information from staff and teachers, and you know, again, I think the important thing that you said is we want our teachers to kind of teach and educate and have that classroom experience versus being police on something of the health nature.
And we're willing to provide. I know the board has been adamant. If there's the cleaning supplies, all the stuff that needs to take place, we're ready to provide that and make that push. We're just not going to go against parents' rights or abilities to dictate what they want their kids to do. That's just not our business. And we can't. We just can't. We don't have the resources to do it. We just don't.
I think one thing we can do as a board in a district is we can reach out to the public through a survey of parents that have kids within the district and get feedback from them on their thoughts, because we don't have a plan from a district standpoint.
No.
So
Nobody
I think
does.
get feedback. I mean, it's kind of like, it's the same, very similar. If you get 80% of your parents say we don't want masks, why would we even? I think we need to get data back instead of saying, hey, we're past this mandate, and you got 18,000 students showing up with a form tomorrow wanting to give that to whomever's on that site. So I think it might be worth us going to our patrons and asking for feedback from parents that have kids in the district, attending the district, about what they want for their kids when they attend school.
Well, that's part of our responsibility as board members, is to get feedback from the community and the parents. You know, we don't know it all. You know, we need to have some input, and so that's not a bad way to go about it.
And I think we could easily do that. We just, we'll figure it out, but figure out a way to keep it secure and make sure that we don't have people just logging in and doing this survey that have nothing to do with Broken Arrow schools, but we can figure that out.
Okay. So
Don't
we need to
make a motion.
Motion to vote on your changes.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay. Entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we accept the changes that were presented.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Can I ask that we take a 10-minute break?
Yeah. Please.
We
We didn't get voting buttons.
We don't
on
need,
this.
we don't have to make a motion. We're in, what do you call it? Recess. Yeah, we don't need.
We didn't get voting buttons.
I did. I voted.
Oh. Did I vote?
I got a button from it.
I didn't get voted. Oh, wait. I know. I know what I need to do. Sorry. Yeah, it's not popping up.
never got closure because school was done. No problem, anything like that. Never got to really say goodbye. And then she goes away to college and comes back, and everybody's not here anymore. And so, and so I think that goes to reality. Jackson never came home, but just for a couple weeks or something. Admittedly, Bryce is kind of the same way. I don't think Bryce will come home next summer. And so she's just kind of.
Sometimes they just want to hear from parents that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if you want to make another choice. And once I told Cooper that, you know what, if this really isn't for you, come home. You're still here. We'll figure it out. It kind of gave him that. He was like, okay. So he was able to stick it out for that year, and lo and behold, he met his girlfriend a couple months later. And everything changed.
I really wanted to spend some time with her and just, but I didn't get that. My wife ended up going, and one of the friends ended up going, and it's like, so I texted her today. I'm gonna talk to you. Just have a feeling my things are.
Yeah, do some FaceTime, and
Yeah.
it's really sticking. It's hard. I know.
She writes it up there. She gets home a little bit, but I think she got such a phone.
Oh yeah. And she's from homesick. I mean, I have horrible homesickness. Yeah, that's really hard too.
I just,
Because so it's a different type of bond. It's not
yeah,
like
there really is.
my two. We're like, I don't care. Get out, get our house. But you know what's funny was Jenna and Ashton have bonded so much. I think it'll be hard to get them when Jenna leaves. Jenna's completely changed her mind. She's not going to college.
That's what she said.
She's going to tech, and I am so proud of her
And you
for
know,
making that decision.
I think Bryce, the one that's at LIU, would have done the same thing, except he wants to wrestle.
And Jenna doesn't have that. So Cheers probably out. She's having surgery actually Friday. Cheers probably out, so she's good, you know. And she's always been kind of passionate about.
She had the surgery on me.
No, she has it this Friday. Yep. Yeah. So speaking of masks, I've been kind of saying, okay, you need to be wearing masks because if you get COVID now, we have to reschedule your whole surgery.
Isn't that guy that's screaming, he an employee
Yes.
of the district?
I have no idea.
Thought he was.
I don't know.
I've seen him. He works for someone within the district.
I
Saw him
didn't-
at an event.
I didn't recognize
Call
him,
dude
and I'm
that
not wearing
screams.
my glasses, so I couldn't really see. We're just going to talk about the appraisal on Dr. Academy and what we're going to do from here. We talked about possible sellers because there's so much that has to be paid on it. But now that we have the appraisal. We have to talk about that tonight.
You about ready?
Well, we've already said that.
We ready? Everybody ready? Miss Roulette? Yeah, I hear you. Okay, we're now back in session. Next item will be Ms. James, number 11. Oh,
And Miss Peterson.
and Ms. Pearson.
Yes.
Mr. Major said you're on the clock, so.
Okay, yeah, I said we'll be done in like 45 minutes. No, seriously, we'll make this quick. We'll make this quick. So we just wanted to talk just real briefly about our test scores this year. I want to start this or begin just by saying the state did send out a message and they basically said, please make sure, or they didn't say please, but make sure when you are comparing scores to compare you to you. The reason I say that is because many districts opted out of testing this past year. And so we just have to take that into account.
Why did they opt out?
they were given the choice because it was a distance learning year. So many districts didn't go back to school the way that we did, and so they allowed them to opt out. And one other change they made is during, we usually always have to have a monitor for every classroom during testing. This year they said you could have one monitor per building that just roamed. So it was very different than in the past. Now I say all that. Not as an excuse. These are not the test scores that we want to present to you because they are not as good as we would like them to be. So, but the way that we look at them is this is a snapshot of where we were at the end of last year, and now what are we going to do about it? So I'm just going to real quickly outline our plan. We began this school year with all of our principals, and we basically put them through a principal's boot camp is what we called it, because we are going to reset, because we have got to have a sense of urgency about filling the holes for our students. And so we do know, we had last year with the distance learning and the year before where it was, no new concepts were presented for that whole last 9 weeks. So at the elementary level, what we are doing, and a couple of these we are doing collaboratively, which is our monthly PLCs, that's all around data. During our distance learning Mondays, that's part of what teachers are doing. We purposefully put those Mondays after they do a benchmark or a progress monitor, so they have data to look at so they can meet the needs of their students. Our principals' goals this year have to be, one goal has to be on how they're going to accelerate students. And when I say accelerate, I'm not talking about how, it's not like a gifted thing. It's how are we going to accelerate their learning for those students that are behind, and how are we going to remediate. So those are two goals that they must have, and every principal has to outline an action plan for themselves on how they're going to meet those goals and how they're going to monitor those goals. We've always had our principals set those goals, but we are trying to be so intentional. And then Ms. James and I are really holding ourselves to a whole different level of accountability and making sure we're monitoring those sites. Another thing that we are doing is we're using ESSER funds. We are going to provide tutoring for 2nd and 3rd grade students, but I just met with a group of principals just this past week to outline a framework to be really intentional about who are we tutoring, what are we doing, who's doing the tutoring, and so that is set to start right after fall break. And so I'll be presenting that to principals this next week. We are also implementing Waterford K-2 district-wide and Imagine Learning 3rd through 5th district-wide. I have to point out one thing. These are two research-based programs. If you look at Linwood's scores, they were actually in math like 16% above the state. That is one site. They were getting awards from Imagine Learning because of their fidelity and implementation. It works. And so that was another expectation that we had for our sites. Another one, we had very clear and very explicit curriculum expectations that I presented to the principals for the teachers. We now have curriculum for all subjects. So they have to be utilizing that core curriculum 90% of the time. And one last thing that I did at the elementary level was I targeted our lowest 6 schools. And so I am meeting, and I've divided those up. There were 3 schools. I basically said I've got 3 tier 3 schools and 3 tier 2 schools. My tier 3 schools I'm meeting with monthly. I'm going to monitor the progress with them to see how they are doing and what actions are putting into place, and also just how can I be a support to them. And then I'm doing that with those tier 2 schools after every benchmark. As of now, all of those schools except one have also met with our new RTI coordinator and also with Ms. Hennis to talk about what instructional needs that they may have or what instructional supports that they may have. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. James so that she can talk about secondary.
Kind of like Jennifer said, we're trying to create more consistency or just kind of be more intentional about the consistency between pre-K and 12, so looking at those things that we can do together. I would just elaborate too on the ESSER funds that we're using for tutoring. We're doing that for our middle school for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders during the school year and before. They can do it after school or before school. And then also a bridging the gap in the summer. Like how can we know you're moving into 7th grade, let's go ahead and continue working on those standards that you need. And we're doing that for 6th, 7th, and 8th. We use iExcel at the middle school level. It too is research-based and can show improvement if we're staying on it and utilizing it correctly. So we're focusing on that as well. One thing I do want to point out on here, I felt like there were some bright spots that we could talk about. We won't go into the detail, but one thing I do want to give recognition and appreciation and thanks to the board and Dr. Vincent on this is the piece that we have invested in the SAT suite, where we give the SAT to 8th graders, 9th graders, 10th graders, and then 11th graders. We provide the state SAT. We are seeing benefit from that. Students are becoming more familiar with the questions. Teachers are more familiar with that. We're increasing that level of critical thinking. We have room to grow, and we're continuing to do that. But I think most districts have not invested in that program, so we're able to see how our students progressing based on the SAT as we move over into high school. So I feel like that was a plus I wanted to make sure and pull out. I think pretty much everything else that Jennifer has talked about, I think has been very intentional in providing a framework that's very clear and that all administrators understand because they are the instructional leader at that site. And kind of like Jennifer said, just having that accountability for ourselves, but for them as well. And then to see what's going on in the classroom and making sure we're providing strategies and professional development that will allow teachers to both teach on level, but also provide that scaffolding and support as students as we close those gaps for students. So, are there any questions for either of us, or can we clarify? Or
Well, I'm glad to see that we actually, I mean, y'all have seen the scores. You've got a plan together to kind of address some of the areas, opportunities for improvement. And I apologize if I'm not connecting my question to this, but I know we talk about accountability and we look at these scores as kind of reactive nature of here's where we're at.
mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what we're doing, kind of milestones? What are some of the steps that we're doing in between or early detection to try and make certain we're getting there instead of waiting for the next testing period?
Yes.
How do we measure it, I guess, is what
I'll
I'm asking.
mention briefly for secondary, and then of course elementary. It looks a little different because it's kind of two different beasts, as we know. What we're doing within our PLCs that we've implemented on Distance Learning Mondays, and then an additional PLC day, the teachers take their progress monitoring. So I'm teaching this, I'm gonna provide a test, and I'm gonna review who did learn the concept, who did not learn the concept. Now what am I gonna do for those kiddos who did not? At the same time, the question is, how am I gonna continue extending the learning for those other students? Because we wanna keep moving them forward if they can do that. So very intentional conversations that are happening every time they meet that follows, kind of like Jennifer said, we set those meetings up that follow after the kiddos have taken that test. So we use STAR test data, to do that for kiddos to do. It's diagnostic, so it tells them where they're at, what they've mastered, what they've not mastered, and we can go from that. I'll let Jennifer clarify a little bit more at elementary level.
So we also use STAR, but we also have two other data points, which is we call it NSGRA. It's just, and it gives a student a reading level, and then our Literacy Now, which tells us the exact skills that they are missing. Teachers have got to enter that data monthly so that, when they form a group of students, it's not the same group all year because we're continuing to grow them. We're doing exactly like Ms. James just said, where every site is progress monitoring monthly so that they have 3 data points so that we don't have to be reactive. We can be proactive in seeing their deficiencies. The other thing that we are doing, along with Ms. Hennis and Ms. Warwick, our RTI coordinator, we are having monthly small group like site principal meetings. So our small title, large title, and our non-title sites principals come together. They're going to bring their data. They're going to talk about what successes they're having, where they may need some help from their peers, and it's just going to be a time that they come together to talk about their data and what they're doing so they can learn from one another. Just like we expect that exact same thing from our teachers during their PLC times.
Thank you. That answered my question.
All right. Any other questions? Discussion? Thank you. Okay, next item is consent agenda. Mr. Cocker, was there an item you wanted to?
Yeah, I've got a few items.
Okay.
Item 54, the title to the fall play.
Okay.
Some explanation on that.
He wants to pull John wants to pull item 54 to have discussion on it. Is there any, Dr. Vincent, anyone that can speak to that?
I
Or-
will have more information tomorrow
Okay.
about that. It's a comedy, like a murder mystery that is designed for that age group, that I would like to vet that out.
Okay.
Yeah, it's concerning. The school, anything must wash their hands before murder. I mean, that's
Especially.
May not be
especially-
related to anything.
Yeah, but it's,
So do we want to table that item till the,
Yeah, I think we can table that.
and
item.
actually, because of the costs associated with that, if you're able to get the explanation back, they could probably pay for that and get that. I mean, is that right? I mean, because we have or is this new contract? Okay. Okay. So when is the data? Do you know the date of the event?
I do not.
Okay. We'll just have to table it, and then if we need to have a meeting to get it done, we'll just have to have a meeting to get it done. Okay.
and then, item 59. It says for the gym space, it says for the wrestling room, who's in charge of it? Who's it for? I know, but who are they? You know, we've had that discussion. I mean, who is Broken Arrow Wrestling now? That's the key. You know, in the past, I know I've ran it, I know Sean's ran it, and Ronnie's ran it, but who's running it now? It's gonna tie into also on the action item 88 as far as the wrestling booster club and stuff, because there was a combined mix with the boys, girls, and the youth club. Has that gotten straightened out? Who's actually over the youth club now? And then, you know, what facilities are being used as far as that? Because this says the gym here.
I think it says gym space, John.
Do what?
Gym space, so I would assume that would be a space within the gym. I can't answer that, but.
That's what I
think.
think.
It's referring to the field house as a whole and the wrestling ring connected to that.
So they're gonna get the flat fee for $350, the whole gymnasium?
No, it'll please the wrestling.
This is different than what it has ever been, since I've been on the board, since it's been approved. So, I mean, there's not a name associated with that, who is responsible for this?
I don't have that information.
I think she's, our facilities coordinator, I think, is working with Coach Jones through that. That's who typically, she works through that, doesn't she? Chuck, I'm pretty sure it's through them.
Well, there's a separate program of youth wrestling club that.
Right.
I can find out.
Yeah, I would like to, I mean, because it's been 3 months, and there's supposed to have been a big shakeup and everything to come together and make sure everybody was encompassed, and, you know, that's the feeder program to Broken Arrow Wrestling. And so, you know, we do have a girls program now in the girls facility and stuff, so now Broken Arrow Wrestling coming in and using the whole facility. I mean, it was pretty in detail. I know when I ran it for 10 years, you know, you've got the wrestling room, nothing else, you got the restrooms. Now it's the gym, and it always had a name. It had either Sean, Rodney, or my name on the thing. And now there's nothing on here, and that's because we do have a girls program now that we need to look at feeding, and we're trying to figure this out. And I thought there was going to be some sort of come together and work this all out, and I haven't had any updates until I got this agenda. So I don't know where it's at, what's going on with the booster club, where's the money, because it wasn't done correctly. Has there ever been an audit done on any of the stuff? There has.
Their financials have been turned in along with their renewal application. I can give you a copy of that.
Yeah, I would like that.
So do we need to
We wanna
do we
table
need to
item
table
54,
59 as
59.
well?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what did you say about 8? Well,
That's
that's
an
not on
action
the
item.
agenda. Yeah, never mind.
Yeah.
54, 59,
Okay.
and then 88.
Well, that's not
That's a standalone.
that's a standalone
Okay.
item.
Okay, so.
Ask for, entertain a motion for approval of the consent, tabling item 54 and 59.
I make a motion to accept the agenda items and then tabling item 54 and 59 until the next board meeting.
And I'll second that.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
and Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, 82. Is that correct? Ms. Kern?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Okay. This is information only, correct?
It is.
Okay.
Tonight I bring to you several policy changes. I know at first glance it looks a little bit overwhelming. I assure you that it is not. In September is always the month where we receive the RFR changes that were driven by the legislative session in the spring, and our policy council meets and we implement those. So 25 of these are just verbatim RFR changes based on legislation policy. Those I have uploaded in Basecamp and highlighted the different, what they're regarding. 7 of these policies have very simple title or number changes. So if a person's actual employee's title changes, or if a new person comes or we switch a duty, then we always update all of our policies with those titles. We also had 2 policies that needed number changes, meaning they were in the communications section, but really they dealt more with students, or they dealt more with an employee issue, and we'd have thought that it would be a lot easier for the general public to find those policies if they were in a different section. So number changes only. Out of these 40-some policies, there's only 7 policies that we actually made adjustments by the policy council from Broken Arrow Public Schools coming to you to really look at these changes. And I've outlined those in Basecamp and in an email to you all, so you can look more closely. Not that you won't review them all, but those 7 are the ones that have a little bit more leeway or discretion rather than legislative-based changes. This is information only tonight, to allow you the full month to review the policies, and I can bring them to you in October as an action item.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Next item, Ms. James.
Good evening, President Allen, the board, and Dr. Vinson. I have a renewal agreement I'd like to place before you for your discussion and approval. It is an agreement between us and Tulsa Technology Center in which our students can participate in their aerospace program. Our students who attend this and are accepted into the program attend all day there. So they get the aerospace piece of that certification, while at the same time they're working through all their core classes and electives that they would receive from us. So there's a fee of $1,750 per student. Still less than the ADM that we receive for that student, so it is a discount, but that's where it counts. We have been running around 20 to 22 students a year, every year, who participate in this program.
Questions or discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell,
Yes.
Ms. Roulette,
Yes.
Mr. Denton,
Yes.
Mr. Allen.
Yes. Next item, Ms. James.
Yes, at this time, I'd like to visit with you about a renewal between an agreement between us and Next Level Athletics to offer internship opportunities for our students. This company offers community workout. You can go and participate in their workouts. They also work with students who are high level and hope to go to a D1 school, so they help support them and make connections for them. Our students are able to go and do internships with them through the workout, through that athletic piece of it, but also through how you create a business. These 2 young men started the business from the ground up. They were entrepreneurs, so they visit with kids. How do you make your dreams come true with maybe something you're wanting to start? In addition, they do advertising, accounting. It has a whole lot going on in that one internship. So I just want to place that before you guys to accept this memorandum of understanding with this program as we move forward with our internship programs.
Make a go ahead.
What's our vetting process on new prospective partnerships like this?
Right now, we have people calling us, like, they're coming to us wanting to have that program. What we do is either Miss Amanda Grace will meet with them, or they'll call and reach out to me, or the representative of the high school. One of our counselors is focused on that, Christian Flowers. So when we meet with them, we meet at the table and have a conversation like what you're wanting to do, what you need, what kind of internship opportunities you could provide, how that fits into the pathways that our students have. We visit, make sure that they have their program, their piece on the legal end of things, make sure they're certified and it's safe for our students to go there. And then we just kind of continue that conversation and make sure it's a good fit for our students. Does that, I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, does that
Yeah,
kind of
so
address
this
that?
is just basically someone that does athletic cardio training and things like
Correct.
that.
It's a community center for people to pay a membership to go and work out. In addition, the gentlemen, the young men, they work with athletes who, from Epic. Epic is their big thing because Epic can't provide PE or health. So a lot of them will send their students there.
Okay.
And they'll work with them to meet that and say, if you want to go to a D1 school, we'll make the connections, reach out, and visit with recruiters at those schools and universities.
Okay.
And how long have we, this says renewal, how long have we been?
Well, it would have been 3
partnering?
years, but last year with the pandemic, of course, we set out. So this technically would be our 3rd year of entering an MOU with them.
Okay.
They're members of the chamber. That's another extension that we've had in conversations when people and businesses in the community join chamber. That's one of the pieces they can reach out to us and communicate with us if they want to offer an internship. So,
Any other discussion?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Next item, Ms. Enoff.
Good evening. My first item is to ask the board to approve the estimate of needs for the 21-22 school year. Just as a reminder, this is basically our cash audit that we send on to the excise board that sets our ceiling of appropriations in our 3 appropriated funds, sets our millage rate, and confirms our valuation. The one thing I would like to point out about this report is the district's valuation for the upcoming year. We were very pleased with the results from both Tulsa and Wagner County, continuing to come in strong despite the concerns from the assessor's office on the effect COVID would have on commercial property. Luckily, those concerns did not come into fruition, and we continue to grow at our expected rate.
Okay. Any questions, discussion?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, thank you. Next item, number 86, Ms. Enoff.
My next item is to ask the board to approve the operating budget for the upcoming 22 school year. As you know, the estimate of needs sets that ceiling with the excise board, but as a district, we do not set our budget limit that high. We are always well under that ceiling. The one thing I did want to point out to the board this year is the anomaly in general fund. We are asking for a $155 million general fund operating budget due to the one-time stimulus funds that the district will be receiving. This allows us to utilize those funds strategically to continue to help maintain a positive cash flow balance. And so going into the following fiscal year, we will adjust that general fund balance back down accordingly to match those one-time funds. The funding in building and child nutrition is relatively consistent with the previous year, but I did want to make that notation about our general fund for this year.
Any questions?
All right. Make a motion to approve?
I'll second.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, 87, Ms. Enoff.
My next item is to ask the board to approve the ratification of the negotiated agreement between the Broken Arrow Education Association and the district. Negotiations were held on July 5th and 6th with BAEA. On the district team represented was Lori Kearns, Sharon James, Rachel Kaiser, Crystal Barber. I'm asking the board to approve the stipends, the compensation schedule, and the language presented before you tonight. BAEA sent out their ratification survey when teachers returned to the school year with a 99% passage rate. Just for your highlights, $300 was approved into each salary lane addition, and the board has approved an additional $1,300 into the salary scale over the past 4 years above and beyond the typical step raise. That's an investment of an additional $1.6 million over the past 4 years, and I think that's something to be very proud of.
Can you repeat that number again? Over the last how many years? What was that number you just said?
Over the past 4 years, $1,300 has been invested into the certified compensation schedule above and beyond the mandated step increases. That's a $1.6 million investment.
Recurring.
Of recurring.
What's the
costs.
total investment that the board has made with the salary increases that we've
So
approved?
3 years ago, when we kind of turned everything on its head, it was an additional $4.3 million that went into the scale, in addition to the state mandated certified and support raises.
So over 4 years, the district's basically invested $6 million into the.
Correct.
Okay.
And so that significantly elevated Broken Arrow's status in competitive pay for our certified employees, which again is something to be very proud of as an accomplishment for this board.
Absolutely.
I agree, and I mean, and I think that's hats off to you, to HR and to finance and administration and everybody involved. This has been a district-wide effort at the administration level to try and become the district of choice. And I think, we continue to look at ways that we can attract, retain teachers, administrators, and staff as well. Because, again, we want to get the best of the best and keep the best of the best. But, and that's why we ask for the top tier of people and hold them accountable. And I respect that. And so I'm glad to see us moving in that direction and continue to kind of look at ways we can do that.
Well, and just to speak to that, we appreciate the board supporting it because the last 10, 15 years have been pretty volatile in educational funding, but this board made it a point that they were going to tackle this issue of teacher salaries and our issues trying to recruit. We've got a great culture, but the reality is you have to feed your family. And this board made it that goal, and so it's easier for us to hit those goals when we have the board's support.
Okay.
There will always be ways to spend money and needs, and
always got to take it. No, I'm just kidding.
And as the officer entrusted with looking at all district funds and making sure they're being spent with fidelity and integrity, I appreciate the laser-focused goal of this to make sure that we are not only creating a great culture for our staff, but matching that with compensation.
Cool. Awesome.
Well, we couldn't do without you. You give us the confidence to make these decisions.
It's not me. We have a wonderful team.
Well,
It's you too.
Yeah. I agree. Because if I look at you and I go, Natalie, can we do it? Like, I know that you're going to say, this is what we can do, and it makes me feel more confident in my decisions. So I appreciate you.
I appreciate that.
Any discussion?
No, make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, 88.
My final item is to ask the board to approve the renewal of the following sanctioning organizations for the upcoming school year. The applications are attached.
And I've got some questions on that. It's going to go back to the Broken Arrow Wrestling. It was set up incorrectly, the account initially. And so it was supposed to have been correct last year, and I know it didn't. That's why, has it been corrected this year that we know for 100%?
I was not aware that changes had needed to be done, so I can look into that for you.
Okay, before I can approve,
So
before I
do-
can vote on that, I'm gonna need to know that, so.
So are we able to remove, let's say approve all of them but that one, or do we need to? And I'm assuming it's that Broken Arrow Wrestling Booster Club
You can.
specifically?
You can approve them all but one.
You can pull one out.
You can pull
Okay.
them out.
So if we pull that out, does it have any other impact, like funding or anything like that between now and next month?
I don't believe so.
Well, with the questions you have, John, about an account, does that mean they can't be sanctioned though? I mean,
Well, the problem was we had the youth club, the girls program, and the boys program all on one account, and it was ran through the booster club. So what happened? Did it get corrected? Is it fixed? Or?
Are they supposed to have, each individual is supposed to have their own?
The youth club shouldn't be on there at all. It needs to be its own thing. That's the issue. And then where did the money get?
well,
was
this
put in
right here,
place?
what we are approving is this tax ID number 8422922253. So,
What do you?
on the application.
Right, but what I'm saying, we can't approve it if we don't know what it's actually funding and what it's truly over. It's not gonna restrict anybody from
So I
running
think-
tournaments and making
yeah,
money and putting it in the
yeah.
account now.
So I think, we make the motion excluding Broken Arrow Wrestling Booster Club and then bring it back to get answers, get questions, and make certain we vet that out.
And the application states that they have until October 15th to submit all documentation, so we still have another board meeting
Okay.
to work out any questions and concerns.
Okay.
It just needs to be, I know it hasn't been correct from the beginning, and it was supposed to last year, and it didn't happen, so we need to make sure it's correct this year.
So since we have another vote after this on this specific, on the sanctioning of boosters, would you like to leave the wrestling in there or take it out for the next vote?
We'll remove it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Correct.
So the motion will need to be
So-
made, all those excluding
Right.
that one.
So I make a motion that we
Approved.
approve, this is the sanctioning, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Approve the sanctioning of all these groups with the exception of the Broken Arrow Wrestling Booster Club, which will be tabled and brought back to the next board meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes, I don't have a voting button.
What's wrong with mine? I need it. It's almost like a. it's
Ain't
almost-
room for one.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
out of
that's the
room.
problem, is there's not enough room.
Dr. Vincent, next item is new business. Was there anything we were gonna talk about new business wise? Okay. The executive session, is that in relation to,
Property.
do we wanna go ahead and move forward with that, or you wanna table that?
That's-
Is it needed to conduct business for the next meeting, or before the next meeting?
No.
I say we table it for the next meeting.
You got it.
Is everybody okay with that, with tabling
good
executive
with
session
that.
to the next
Yeah, I'm
meeting?
Good with that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we are going to table the executive session until the following board meeting.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, please call the roll.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item will be to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, please call the roll. I didn't know if you needed that meeting to, any questions or anything like that. Okay.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
See it.
Before you get to the station, so they don't make money.